Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're really glad to have you. A couple of quick housekeeping items. The session is being recorded, and we'll send the recording afterward. Many folks are starting to introduce themselves in the chat. Please feel free, but also leave questions in the chat, and we're going to leave time at the end of the webinar today to answer as many of those as possible. So getting started, my name is Kelsey Whitehead, and I'm VP of Insights and Innovation at Panoplai. I've been in the market research industry for about 15 years now, and I started my career on the agency side, designing surveys, analyzing results, and turning insights into recommendations. Across my 15 years in insights and research tech, one pattern has really been consistent. Teams are not short on data, but they're short on confidence when it's time to decide. The gap between insight and decision is where time and trust get lost. And as part of our trust and validation work, we recently published a white paper on how teams can evaluate digital twins. So today is really a practical continuation of that conversation. We're not here to talk about AI features, but really we're here to talk about what happens right before a team commits to a decision where confidence matters most. And when I say pressure testing today, I really mean putting a decision into realistic context with constraints, trade-offs, and stakes to see whether that decision holds up before you actually commit to it. So what we're going to cover today is really zooming out and taking a look at how AI has changed research, but why confidence is still the hardest part. Then I'm going to jump into digital twins and show you where they fit, specifically at the moment that decisions are made. Finally, we'll jump into the Panoplai platform and walk through a live pressure test so you can see what confidence actually looks like when it's strong enough to support a decision. So no surprise with this stat here, AI is now the default. AI is everywhere in research. New tools are launching constantly, and existing platforms are embedding AI into every workflow. So adoption isn't really the issue anymore. But the real question is, when we get an output, how do we know that it's something we can trust enough to act on? AI produces outputs, but it doesn't automatically resolve uncertainty. In our trust and validation white paper, we found something really important. Trust doesn't come from understanding every technical detail of the underlying model, but it comes from seeing whether a decision holds up inside real moments. And so let's just take a step back and think about our roles as researchers today. We take in more inputs than ever. You might be sitting on, a mountain of data. You run research all day long. Maybe you work for a brand and you've done, hundreds of studies over the past several years. Maybe you're at an agency and you have, really key clients that you run research for all the time. We have so many inputs that we can really sift through to get to our decisions. And we really generate more of those decision moments or recommendations than ever. But more outputs don't always create more confidence. The hardest part here is still the moment of choice, because that's when hesitation shows up, when trade-offs appear, and when risk suddenly matters. So the question becomes, how do we simulate that moment before we commit? So with all of these years of research that lives across decks and folders, how can we use that? And how can we apply it in real time to, make decisions that we need to make? I don't know about you guys, but I've seen some marketing faux pas take place where maybe just one subset of data or research has been considered versus years of historical data that points in a different direction. So a digital twin is really going to represent the accumulated knowledge and allow you to interact with it. It will give you a holistic point of view without forcing you to manually connect everything yourself. So instead of reaching on the shelf, flipping through 40 decks to triangulate a view, you can really think with a digital twin in real time. It's not here to replace research, but it's elevating how you use what you already know. So introducing Panoplai. Panoplai brings together survey data, behavioral inputs, synthetic enrichment, and digital twins into one system. But what makes it powerful isn't just data, it's how teams apply it. And today we're focusing on the one capability, which is the digital twin capability, and using it to validate decisions before we actually commit. So a little more on digital twins. Digital twins can simulate how people choose rather than just what they say, especially when we introduce trade-offs and risks. Digital twins allow teams to validate decisions before committing, to stress test assumptions, to surface trade-offs, and see where confidence holds or breaks. The key isn't having a twin, it's really how you use it. So before we jump into the demo, I want to give you a simple mental model for what you're about to see. And really, this is the decision validation framework that we're going to use to build confidence before actually deciding. It's not a rigid checklist, and it's not really about writing clever prompts, but instead you're going to see us move naturally through these steps in the demo. We're going to frame a real decision, ground the digital twin with context, calibrate the digital twin, then start to force trade-offs and test what holds up. The key idea is that this is about validating our thinking, not collecting new feedback. So keep this in mind as we go. So getting into the demo, just a couple of things before we jump into the platform. I just want to set the stage. So focus less on the interface and really more about like the outputs that we're getting here. Because the evolution of what shifts when pressure is applied is actually where the confidence starts to build. So the decision that we're going to be simulating is a leading snack brand is launching their first protein bar line. Two messaging directions tested well, both feel reasonable, both have support, and neither looks obviously wrong. The call is simple. Which tagline should lead? Healthy or filling? And this is exactly the kind of decision that teams debate internally for weeks because everything looks good, because there's not one area that makes one win over the other. And this is exactly where digital twins are valuable. Instead of rerunning new research, you can just pressure test what you already have. So what to watch out for as we go through the demo. Take a look at when trade-offs appear, when confidence shifts, and when something that sounded interesting at first suddenly becomes actionable. We're looking to separate output from signal. So let's open the platform. All right. So in the platform, I'm just going to start by kind of teeing up what you're seeing and what you're going to see. So right now we are in a data conversation with underlying data. The underlying data that this digital twin has access to is 6 studies across a number of different topics that are all kind of consumer related topics. And then 7 files, which are articles or reports associated with advertising trends, marketing strategies, food and beverage branding, so on and so forth. So things that, bringing them together can really help to support the decision that we're looking to make about which tagline for the snack bar to lead with. In the next few minutes, you're going to see 3 things. Number 1, how to validate a real decision before you invest in it. Number two, how digital twins really simulate choice rather than just opinion. And number three, what actionable output looks like. So to start, I want to ground the context. The digital twin is going to represent general adult snack purchasers. As I mentioned, it's grounded in behavioral and category data, survey data across 13 studies and files. These are the same kinds of inputs that teams already have and already use. We're not teaching it anything in real time. We're just observing how this accumulated knowledge behaves when a decision is applied to it. So before we ask any questions, we need to give the digital twin context. We need to tell it who it represents and the kind of decision environment that it's in. It's basically like we're handing a brief to someone before a meeting. So I've got some prompts and instructions that I'm going to be kind of copying and pasting. So first, I'm going to configure additional instructions. If I were to talk to the digital twin currently, it would just represent the data, but nothing specific, no part of a specific segment. What I'm doing here is I'm actually giving it context as to what I want it to do. You can get more narrow with the audience that you want to probe. So if you wanted to look at a specific age group or other type of segment, you could certainly do that. Really, the only thing that I'm doing is having them represent someone that are everyday snack decision makers and have limited attention. I've got a couple of sentences later on that just tell it I want it to share supporting information and how I want the responses formatted for easy viewability. So then now that the context is set, we can really begin. So my next step, if you think back to the framework, is calibration. And when I think about calibration, what I'm really trying to do is make sure that I'm simulating the right mindset rather than just generating text. I want to make sure that the system is representing the underlying data and also is representing the mindset of the individual segment that I'm interested in. So asking my first question, and it's going to think for a moment, and then it will give us the responses. So a lot of this information is known information. It's stuff that we already know that we're trying to retrieve. You can see here that it will also source information that it's giving when it's giving these percentages in a chart form that's coming from the underlying data. You have the ability to just hide the chart if you don't want to show it. So one more question that I want to ask just to kind of like get them thinking. If you're thinking about like maybe a focus group or something like that, you usually start with kind of warm-up questions. That's exactly what we're doing here. So now I'm asking it, when you're choosing quickly, what matters to you the most? And it's telling me when making a quick snack choice, here are the factors that really matter to me. Price, convenience and availability, brand familiarity, promotions and discount, packaging and visual appeal. And again, it's sourcing that information. Any of these are clickable so that you can see in the underlying data what that looks like. So really, to me, this is just validating that we're simulating the right mindset and that it's interpreting the underlying data that it has. So now we can really start to get into the particular decision. To start, I want to force trade-offs. So I'm going to describe a product environment. And when I do so, I also am going to ask a question just so that it can tell me the initial reactions to the snack that I've described. So as we wait, it's starting to come up. And again, none of this is really surprising. Most of it are category norms or general expectations that we likely already know or have from our underlying data. Going to ask it one more question here just to kind of provide that background context, and it's really expectation setting before decision making. So what do you expect the snack to deliver? So based on the initial description that we gave, we're now getting some expectations. So the product description of being individually wrapped, moderately priced, positioned as an everyday snack, something that you'd grab between meetings and errands, you know, general, really category norms. So now we can actually introduce the two benefit framings.
Talk to us for a few hours.
So the benefit framings here are going to be two options: better for you energy or satisfying and filling. These were two taglines that in our research tested the same for these products. And, overall reactions were positive for both of these. Which should we lead with? So I'm going to introduce the two benefits, and then I'm asking a question about which feels more natural for a snack like this. And our goal here is really just instinct. Where do you instinctually categorize these two options? Is it option A? Is it option B? So the system is telling us, okay, option A actually feels more natural, and here's why. Better for you energy. I sense it's going to be quick energy, health conscious ingredients, perceived alignment with everyday snacking habits. Option B is appealing, but it's maybe more suited for meal replacement and potentially, some misalignment with the expectations of a light everyday snack. So that's great. Now I want to actually require a choice. So I'm going to tell it, give it a specific situation, give it some trade-offs, and have it decide which of these options are you going to grab. You're hungry between meetings and have 30 seconds. Which are you going to grab? So as it starts to respond here, we're looking to take note of that we've moved from noticing to deciding. And so what it's saying is immediate relevance, health conscious reassurance, fit for a quick snack, confidence, and functionality. In a high pressure, low attention moment like this, it's clear, purpose driven, and closely aligned. It removes doubt and instills confidence. So finally, what I want to do here is to start to apply pressure. I want to ask questions about this particular option. So option A, what would make option A fail? So I'm asking, if you bought this option and it disappointed you, what likely went wrong? And the goal here is not negativity, but it's more about risk. I want to understand where and when risk becomes more visible. So the energy boost didn't meet my expectations. It didn't curb my hunger. The taste didn't match. Portion size felt insufficient. It was mismatched with expectations for the health claims. So lots of areas that could potentially introduce disappointment by consumers of this product. And then I want to ask it one more time here, but now I'm asking, all right, great. Would you worry about any of these things before purchasing or only after? So it looks like most of these concerns would really arise only after purchasing and a product under delivered. So before buying, I might be more concerned with visible confidence boosters about like the packaging and the reassuring claims. ease of comparison, trust in category norms, and then after buying, some of these doubts might come up. So finally, we're going to have it shift context. It already said that the other option I think would be better if I'm looking for like a meal replacement, and actually that was the context that I wanted to switch to. So let's think about this as if it were meant as breakfast instead of an afternoon snack. Which option are you going to choose? Some people don't eat breakfast at all. Some people eat a really light breakfast. So I feel like this is probably a good substitute. Let's just see how it responds here. Our goal here is to notice how changing the context actually changes the decision logic. And again, surface new risks and opportunities without refielding or fielding new research. So now for breakfast, it's actually going to switch to option B and say, here's why this aligns better. So I want to be satisfied and filled to start the day. The calorie investment now feels justified. I'm confident in the nutritional value because it has enough substance to act as a meal replacement. Energy alone for option A doesn't feel meal worthy. And I'm also have a risk of lacking fullness if I choose this option. So we could keep going here and ask, a number of different scenarios and really continue to drill down. But for the purposes of the demo, I'm going to pause here. I just want to highlight a few things. We're not counting responses. We're not looking at what percent says this option versus this option. What we're looking for is what affects confidence in our decision. If we were to go forward with option A, what are potential risks or opportunities that we need to be aware of before actually making this decision? So across the simulation, there were a few patterns, that were consistent. I think it is clear that, health claims were really helpful and were important when, it was just a snack. It's just something that you need to kind of get you by. But satisfying and filling actually held up better in the breakfast scenario. We didn't ultimately choose what people liked more, but we reduced what could undermine confidence at the moment of choice. So what you just saw wasn't intended to be a feature demo. It's really intended to show you that you can think with your data. You've got all of this underlying data at your fingertips, and this is a way to simulate decision points so that you can really test whether a decision is going to hold up before you commit. So now let's take a step back and we will name the method. So just as a quick recap, we didn't chase perfect answers, optimize for what people liked, or assume that the first output was right. We actually noticed that things changed depending on the situation. We started with a real decision, applied pressure, and tested what holds up, and we watched what changed at the moment of choice. This is a real difference between just generating insight and building conviction. And this is exactly what we documented in our trust and validation white paper. Confidence isn't built by handing teams more outputs. It's built when those outputs hold up under pressure. So what you just saw was validation in practice. The decision that we tested about the snack bars was intentionally simple. So the method was really easy to see, but this method scales. Not only can you be more specific with respect to the segment that you want the digital twin to represent, we also have teams and customers that are using the same workflow across a number of different areas. So prioritizing different experiences in their products, stress testing messaging, sanity checking before campaign launches, and making portfolio calls. The decision can change, but the logic behind how we set up this decision does not. Anywhere trade-offs and confidence matter, this approach can apply. And as we saw today, this approach really matters most when everything already looks good. Both of these taglines were great and tested well. But what we were driven to digital twins to do was to figure out which we should lead with, because there was no obvious answer. And maybe we were aligned but uneasy internally, or maybe we had differing opinions. Digital twins can help reveal what actually matters and when trust strengthens or cracks. So think about when brands make major changes, like logo redesigns. I'm thinking about one specifically, I think that happened last fall. But we've all seen examples where the reaction wasn't what the company expected. And often those decisions are based on one point in time, one data set, one study. Imagine instead simulating how your audience would react to a change like that, grounded in years of accumulated insight. So confidence comes from knowing what to trust. Digital twins are not intended to replace human judgment. They're here to strengthen it. Most teams start with a decision that they already need to make. And once that decision is tested, it becomes much clearer where confidence is real, where risk still exists, and where innovation actually makes sense. That's the shift from debating insights to deciding with confidence, faster and with less regret. Trust isn't declared, it's earned when decisions hold up under stress. So thank you again for attending our webinar today. We hope that you've enjoyed it. You are going to receive not only the recording to this session, but also 2 short leave behinds, which are the pressure testing playbook, which is that 5-step framework, and then a prompting guide that's going to help you craft good prompts for digital twins immediately. And if you'd like to try this for yourself, you can scan the QR code to book an exclusive speed date with your digital twin session. Bring a real decision, put it to the test, and see what holds up. And with that, I'll open the floor for questions. Grace, would you like to facilitate questions?
Yes. So we have a few different questions. We'll get through as many as we can. The first one is, what kind of specific files can this ingest and interpret? Is it raw survey data, respondent level data, crosstabs, reports with headlines?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we specifically from a file type standpoint, we can ingest survey level data in the form of Excel. We can ingest behavioral style data, which would be like purchase data, reviews, things like that associated with products. Usually those are in the format of Excel as well. We also have the ability to ingest PowerPoints, Word documents, crosstabs. We can always, pull those in either in Excel or by converting into PDFs. So a number of different types of files. Just as an example, maybe I can click back to the platform and just show you like some of the files that we had in here. Anything that is a study is actually going to look like a study. So when we open up a study in the system, it's going to automatically chart everything for you. But the files that we ingested here, I did mostly PDFs, but you can see quickly the types of files here. Once I open it, let me find one that will show you precisely. Here we go. So for this one was just an article that I downloaded, and it was text file with icons and images. So yeah, great question.
And Kelsey, just to add a little bit more into that. Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Hancock. I work with Kelsey over at Panoplai. Um, we also have APIs for direct integration. So it's also doesn't necessarily have to be manual, and we can upload a lot of data. Just want to underscore that. It's not just a little, we can really put, we can really put everything in the universe.
Great. Thanks, Lisa.
Awesome. The next question is, does the twin represent just a single person or does it represent the aggregated opinion of a panel of consumers?
Great. It will do either. So you can narrow down specifically the individual that you're looking to speak to if you want to do that, or it will represent kind of a composite view of the overall segment or panel that you're looking to speak to. So you have options there.
Awesome. The next one is, how is this digital twin any different than an AI persona? Or in Panoplai, is this particular implementation of a digital twin more or less the same as an AI persona?
That's a great question. Yeah, these are, I would say, similar. I'm not 100% on like your definition of an AI persona, but yeah, that's exactly it. Is you're uploading your data into the system in order to generate a persona that's based on all of that foundational data. So it's very similar, I would think, to an AI persona.
Great. This next one is, how do we know that the digital twins are representative of real people? Also, did they respond like real people? Example, I think this rules versus say too formal of responses. Example, this is a superior choice. And then they say they need to convince their clients that digital twins are reliable and nuanced.
That's a great question. So, one offering that we spoke about early on in the webinar that Panoplai has is called synthetic data. And that's where we actually simulate survey responses to a real survey. And when I say simulate, it's, like let's say you have 500 participants on a survey, you would literally just launch a survey to 500 synthetic participants. In this case, this is where, we would have the individual responses per participants. And those would be, I think really responding like real people. We've done a lot of work to validate and adjust how the twin responds and making sure that it is representing a real audience versus being more formal or kind of synthetic in nature. So that's definitely an option. The other thing that you can do is in the instructions of a digital twin. So if you were using what we did today, you could have it represent for you a specific segment, and you could say, you could adjust your questions to say, instead of the thematic reactions that we saw today, you could ask for specifics. So you could say something like, give me, specific responses that people might say when encountering this product for the first time. And you would get, more of those personal, like this rules, or this is a superior, or sorry, this rules, that this is better than that option because, X, Y, or Z.
And if everyone can hear me, Kelsey, I was just gonna add one more point about actually the AI personas and the validation. And I wanted to say that Kelsey, of course, is totally correct that what we do in a lot of ways is similar to AI personas, that these terms are very much up in the air now. I just wanted to really focus in, hone in on one difference between the way we handle digital twins and the way the vast majority of other platforms think about AI personas or internal ChatGPT instances or whatever. And that is focused on the word representativeness that Kelsey raised. So one thing we do is we ingest raw data on a columns and rows basis. And we make sure that we have enough scaled quantitative data in order to make sure that the outputs from our digital twins and synthetic data are representative of actual people and groups of people in the real world. One big problem I think we're facing as an industry is that the outputs from ChatGPT or a lot of other platforms are good. They seem plausible, right? It's a good way to think about ideas. But how are you certain that they actually represent the views of a group of people out in the world that you're trying to target or sell to? So to me, our use of the term digital twin is intended to focus on the fact that our digital twins are actually representative and grounded in quantitative data as well as capable of outputting really nuanced, powerful, qualitative language. And then when it comes to validation, I'd say that it's the question of the hour, I think, for all of these approaches. And actually, our team, led by Kelsey, has been doing a pretty remarkable job with internal testing for validation, and then external testing with different client pilots or enterprise clients. And we think that it's really important to actually interweave testing with client engagements, because if you hear somebody say something like, "Oh, our AI personas are 95% accurate," you should dig in a little bit or run the other direction, because it's not possible to create accuracy that's consistent across all use cases and all audiences. And in fact, we want to make sure that our digital twins and synthetic data outputs are accurate within particular business contexts. So by now, we've gotten quite good at that across CPG, B2B SaaS, a number of different sectors, a bunch of different audiences, helping you think about whether the outputs are intended for innovation or for marketing or for whatever.
Thanks, Adam.
Awesome. The next question is, when clients use your tool, are there more data sets used than in the demo? And if yes, what kind of data?
Yeah, definitely. So I touched on this a little bit when we were talking about specific files, but what I did today was just survey research and articles or like reports. But other types of things that customers can upload might be images or concepts, associated with things that they're trying to evaluate, or behavioral style data, such as maybe there's purchase data, what products were purchased together, when were they purchased, what configurations are most important, reviews or social media type of data can also be uploaded into the system. So there's a number of different types of data that can be used to really build the foundation for the digital twins.
Great. And another question, can your digital twins be specific to a target segment for brands? Better yet, can one digital twin serve as multiple segments with proper inputs and context setting?
Definitely. So I guess a good example of this is we worked with a global financial company to essentially do a comparison research between live IDIs with investors and IDIs with digital twins that were based on historical research. And it's really all in the configured instructions that you provide it. So in this particular example that I'm talking about, I had different geographies that I wanted represented. From like a weighting standpoint, I wanted, take into account 30% US, take into account, 20% UK, so on and so forth. I also had different types of investors that I wanted represented in the responses. And so it's really just about configuring those instructions to specify, how you want this digital twin to be built.
Great. The next one, in this example, the choices seemed to be rational, not so much emotional. Do you believe digital twins also include emotional reactions? For instance, if we showed 2 packs with images, do you think emotional reactions wouldn't be more important to the decision?
That's a great question. Yeah. So this example was really intentionally surface level and simple, just so that we were all able to get on the same page. But with that, yeah, it was pretty rational. What would you choose? I would say that emotional reactions are certainly possible. Going back to this like investor example, what we got a lot of in that regard, as far as like why they selected this concept versus this concept, were really the emotional implications of how it portrayed their career, how they wanted to be how they wanted to be perceived and things like that. So again, I think it's really in the art of prompting. So the types of questions that you ask that can elicit some of this, more emotional style feedback and resonance.
Awesome. The next question is, can you share specific examples of APIs you've integrated with in past client engagements?
Yes. So for currently our data structure, as far as ingesting data into our system, we have clients who work in, different areas. So like Box, maybe they have files all in Google Drive, different storage capabilities like that. So we have, worked with them to have like a live feed that has been, I upload a file here, it automatically ingests into Panoplai. The other thing I would say is associated with like survey data in particular, our system is built to mirror the Decipher output, where if you're uploading numeric coded quantitative data, the accompanying data map essentially is in that Decipher format. And so there's, a really seamless and easy way to ingest data that way.
And Grace, I'm just going to pop in here with two quick things too, is just to go back to Monica's question about emotion. In addition to what Kelsey said, we also have 100 million Q&A pairs that have historical emotion scores. So that's also taken into account and can be used to support the emotional resonance that Kelsey was referring to. And then also on Decipher, we have a direct integration into Decipher as well.
Awesome. Great. So we have quite a few questions left. We might not get to all of them. So we'll email the rest of you answers to your questions. But the next one we have is, and this one might have been covered a little bit, what approach or technique do you use to ingest and translate past research into the model?
Yeah, so we're really agnostic when it comes to like where your data was created. It's much more simple to ingest some of the unstructured data. But I've got some automation that we've created using SPSS files that can really take, confirm it, Qualtrics, any kinds of files, regardless of the format, and feed them into the format that we need in order to seamlessly ingest that data. So, if you have specific questions about data structures or things like that you want to ask us about, we're happy to share. But we've seen it all, I would say.
Awesome. And the last question I'll ask is, how do we start with Panoplai? Is it a per project basis? Do we buy a license to the software?
That's a great question. Our pricing is typically subscription based, but we run pilots for customers as kind of like an easy point of entry in order to let you kind of run one use case, see how it works for you, and then decide on that larger subscription. So someone from our team can follow up with you specifically to have that conversation. Awesome. Well, I know that we didn't get to everything, but as Grace mentioned, we will reach back out to those who were not anonymous and make sure that your questions get answered. So thank you all so much for attending. We really enjoyed the conversation and being able to share this with you. So hope you have a great day and look out for those follow-ups.